Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, most of the time it feels good to be right. A moment of vindication, a victory lap. Sometimes it might even make you feel a little bit special. If you made a prediction, if you called it, then it happens. You can feel an immense sense of pride. But in this case, I dread being right. I'm not celebrating it. In this case, I'm disgusted. I'm infuriated. It's so incredibly unfortunate that we are here. Not only that left-wing violence is going to escalate because the left refuses to condemn what is clearly an epidemic, a rise in violence and extremism on their side. We've seen how the Democrat Party, left-wing thought leaders, the mainstream media refuses to name the elephant in the room. It's not just that prediction, but it's also what I just said recently, that we are going to see more and more of this, especially following the Tyler Robinson situation. What's likely to happen here, especially considering the left's inaction, is that we're going to start seeing copycats. We're going to see young radicals looking at what Tyler Robinson did and being inspired to copycat and do the same thing. And of course, we just saw that recently, a shooting at an ABC affiliate building, then a shooting at a wedding with some left-wing nutcase yelling, "Free Palestine," and now it seems we have a literal Tyler Robinson copycat situation as another left-wing shooter with a scoped rifle sets up on top of a rooftop and starts indiscriminately shooting at ICE officers. Many have been pronounced dead, and of course we now have a motive. Ding, 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 another left-wing shooter. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so just like I said, the danger of this culture of violence that the left wing has been engaging in is that once the genie's out of the bottle, it's really hard to put it back in. And so now we seem to be seeing a violent snowball effect.
Hi, I'm Diane Macedo. We are coming on the air with breaking news. Multiple people are dead after a shooting at a Dallas ICE field office this morning. I spoke with Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons just moments ago. Here's what he had to say about the situation.
It appears to be a sniper from an elevated position. Initially 3 individuals were shot. We do have multiple fatalities. All ICE agents and officers at the location are accounted for right now. It's still an active scene. From what we know, the shooter died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Dallas Police Department and the Texas Department of Public Safety have been great help to secure the scene. So it's still active right now in the sense that we're still trying to learn more why this happened, anyone else is involved, and just really securing the area and making sure our people are safe.
The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said in a statement that the shooter's motive is unknown. The director says it appears the suspect shot from a sniper position.
So that was the initial news that dropped, and instantly the left took to social media and insisted that this shooter was MAGA. They made that claim based on the fact that he didn't kill ICE officers, but rather had killed detainees. But that narrative made zero sense from the start. Targeting an ICE facility, it doesn't really seem like something a MAGA conservative would be doing. And obviously that's an inherently political act and consistent with all the anti-ICE agitation that we've seen. The idea that a right-winger would be shooting at an ICE detention facility is completely incoherent considering the political alignment. But all kinds of leftists on social media started running with that very politically convenient storyline. And then, of course, the truth comes out. And again, the evidence is undeniable.
Law enforcement, specifically the Dallas Police Department, for their quick and timely response. I can confirm at this time that the FBI is investigating this incident as an act of targeted violence. It is unfortunately just the most recent example we've seen of targeted violence, to include here in North Texas, where back on July 4th, we saw a coordinated attack carried out against an immigration detention center in Alvarado, Texas. What I can also share with you is that early evidence that we've seen from rounds that were found near the suspected shooter contain messages that are anti-ICE in nature. Again, this is just the most recent example of this type of attack. This will be a whole of government response. There will be no resource not utilized to bring all those individuals who are responsible to bring them to justice and to hold them accountable.
We also have a statement from Kash Patel, where he posted a photo of the marked bullet casings. This morning, just before 7 a.m. local time, an individual fired multiple rounds at a Dallas, Texas ICE facility, killing one, wounding several others before taking his own life. While the investigation is ongoing, an initial review of the evidence shows an ideological motive behind this attack. See the photo below. One of the unspent shell casings recovered was engraved with the phrase anti-ICE. More updates will be forthcoming. And so again, undeniable, another left-wing radical mobilized to violence by left-wing activism and rhetoric. And that, of course, should be the conversation we're having, but no, instead, the mainstream media is focused on somehow attempting to draw this twisted connection to right-wing attacks of violence.
Inspired? Are you worried about copycats?
Yes. I don't know if the rooftop trend is going to be a thing. I mean, it could just be coincidental that the best vantage point just happened to be elevated positions in this case. But, people emulating this kind of attack is certainly a concern. The irony with the writing, the first time we really saw that was Brenton Tarrant in the Christchurch shooting in a mosque in New Zealand, and he was a fierce, white supremacist and neo-Nazi, and wrote all over his weapon and his rounds very hateful information. So to see this coming from potentially the other side of the political spectrum is a little strange, because it is not something, if you are trying to, carry out some kind of message countering, more extreme right-wing stuff, I don't know why you would, use a tactic that a famous white supremacist who has been revered and copycatted over the years by other white supremacists, why you would do that. But it does appear that people are moving in that direction because they want people to know what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Instead of drilling into the obvious signs, the engraved bullets, the targeted selection, instead of drawing the clear connection to Tyler Robinson, which is the most recent example, they're going back over a decade on this ridiculous detour into this both-sidesism, whataboutism nonsense. Let's connect it all to the first supposed right-wing act of violence. The same pattern: dismiss, distract, anything but pointing to left-wing radicalism. They spin, they deflect, they double down on these both sides narratives. It's absolute cowardice and it's dangerous. Maybe instead of connecting it to a completely unrelated case that happened a long time ago and really had nothing to do with right-wing leadership and everything to do with a radicalized individual who had his own racist agenda, maybe, just maybe, make the connection between these latest acts of violence and the Democrat rhetoric that we constantly hear. I mean, right before this happened, look at what Gavin Newsom was saying on a late-night comedy show just the night prior.
That's happening in the United States of America. Masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process, no oversight, zero accountability, happening in the United States of America today. People ask, well, is authoritarianism, you're being hyperbolic? Bull, we're being hyperbolic. If you're a black and brown community, it's here in this country. And so I'm deeply proud that I had the privilege of signing the nation's first bill to address the issue of masking, also to require you have simple identification, to your point. I mean, if some guy jumped out of an unmarked car in a van with a mask on, tried to grab me, I mean, by definition, you're going to push back. And so these are not just authoritarian tendencies. These are authoritarian actions by an authoritarian government. You saw what Stephen Miller said last week. This should put chills up fine. Called the Democratic Party an extremist organization. Basically a terrorist organization, saying he's going after his enemies. You saw the tweet that Donald Trump sent out, Truth Social, basically telling Pam Bondi, I want these 3 people taken out. That's happening in the United States.
Again, more exaggerated, hyperbolic political rhetoric, pouring fuel on the flames, normalizing this idea of rising up against perceived authoritarianism on the other side. That kind of rhetoric matters. Words clearly have consequences, and we've seen the rhetoric that the left has been engaging in. It's not just Gavin Newsom.
And now what DHS is trying to say, again, they're using public intimidation because they know that they cannot come for us all. They know that they cannot come for us all. And recently what they said is that DHS is allegedly looking into arresting members of Congress who were showing up for their legal and constitutional obligation to conduct oversight. If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security. It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on someone, on Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, on Representative, or any of the representatives that were there, you lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem. Because the people who are breaking the law are the people who are not abiding by it. And it is enshrined in the law that members of Congress who show up to ICE and CBP facilities are required to be granted access, legally required to be granted access. And they legally cannot be inhibited from accessing these facilities to conduct their constitutional obligation to investigate and conduct oversight. So if Kristi Noem wants to break the law, that's on her. But it sure as hell is not someone like Representative Robert Menendez that needs to be arrested. Okay?
It's AOC and every other left-wing figure and all the TikTok activists who follow suit, who regularly compare conservatives to fascists, who claim that ICE are Gestapo, this mainstream political movement that repeatedly dehumanizes our side, this culture of creating moral cover for violent actors. We're going to pretend as if we're surprised when attacks on ICE agents are up 1,000%? Again, I am done with your both sides nonsense. And I'm not taken by your phony outrage claiming that Donald Trump is such a bad person for clearly identifying what is happening on the left. We are seeing an actual domestic terrorism problem emerging from the left wing. And it's really not abstract. It's pretty damn clear. This is the inevitable outcome of a culture that refuses to police its own rhetoric and intentionally blurs the line between activism and violence. Or basic conservative common sense policy and fascism. Democrats and their media allies can keep pretending that this is a symmetrical problem, or maybe, just maybe, they can finally stand up and do the right thing. Call it out, name it. Stop excusing it. Stop pushing narratives that protect political allies. If you actually care about public safety, you don't shrug when violence comes from your side, especially not at epidemic levels like this. We are not stupid. It is very obvious. Again, it's not abstract. It's very clear where this is coming from. Stop the normalization of violence. Stop pretending your rhetoric doesn't have consequences after spending the last 8 years lecturing us on rhetoric having consequences and Donald Trump's supposed incitement to violence. Be consistent for half a frickin' second. We've seen 4 left-wing acts of terror in the last 2 weeks. That is not normal. That is an epidemic. That is left-wing domestic extremism, domestic terrorism. And there's no more beating around the bush. That is what's going on. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.